welcome to episode 232 of Be the CEO of Your Life. I am Olga, your host, and I am so excited to be back fully at work coaching because it's giving me ideas on subjects to come and talk to you about here in the podcast. And by the way, you guys, if you have ideas or suggestions of things that you want me to talk about here, send me a message. I would gladly take that into consideration as I'm always looking for new subjects to talk to you about. So today's subject came to me right after coaching one of my clients today who's in a new relationship and she's having so much fun. As we all do, um, early in our relationships. And she is getting to a place where I feel most of us in relationships get to, which is questioning how do we balance these things? How do we balance things out? When we're single, we're in perfect harmony. We have nobody to consider or contemplate into our plans. It's just ourselves. And so it's very easy to feel that we've got somewhat of a routine and balance. But when you add another person into that mix, it is then, possible to start feeling a bit off balance and to start questioning, how do you make it all work? How does people do this? I certainly remember going through that when I started dating my husband after 2 years of being single. You get so set in your routines, and if you're anything like me, you thrive on routine, and then suddenly having a new human to add to your routine with their own calendars, with their own sets of needs, it begins, I don't know, it gets complicated and interesting. Anyways, believe it or not, this subject is not about dating or any of those things, or relationships necessarily, but it is about embracing imbalance, as it is essential for us to get back in balance. And I am a firm believer that life is like a pendulum. It goes from one side to the next constantly. And so when you're in each of those extremes, you're out of balance. And the in between, it is like in that in between from one extreme to the next is where you're finding that balance. And I do believe we stay in balance for a little bit, and then we come off balance and we come back into balance. We're learning about ourselves. We're always evolving. We're always changing. So balance looks differently, right? But what I think is so important is that we learn to understand, when is it that we are off balance? How do I personally know that I've come off my own personal balance and that therefore I am in need of balance? So that's what we're diving into today. When we talk about balance, often we envision a perfect harmony between our work, our personal life, our health, our relationships. Is this ideal state where everything aligns and stress is minimal, right? This is what we all think about balance. I want to say that is probably why some people think balance is the equivalent of a unicorn. This idea of a state in which everything aligns and stress is minimal is so unrealistic. And in fact, I would say that having that idea of balance is probably what increases stress and brings you more off balance. Because life is rarely perfect. Rarely does everything land exactly where we want it to be. We're constantly juggling all the responsibilities, facing unexpected challenges, and we're always adapting to our new circumstances, or fighting our new circumstances, not adapting so well. So I want you to have to just question even like what your definition of balance is for yourself and see if it is closer to what I think is very realistic or if it is a bit more realistic for you. So my client was asking me like today, like, how do I balance being a great girlfriend, but also seeing my friends and still meeting new people and still pursuing my own personal goals and having time alone. And what she was asking, to address in the coaching session, I know is something that every single one of us is asking ourselves, not maybe necessarily about being in this new relationship and trying to balance that out, but each time we're doing something new, if you're returning to work after being on sick leave or mat leave and you're like, okay, hold on, how am I a mom and work and I am a wife and where is there time for scrapbooking, right? Like we're always trying to find that balance. And so what I found fascinating is that throughout this process of coaching in this session, her shoulders drop. She was like, oh my God, I feel relief in my chest. I am so calm. And she came up with a list herself of things that would bring her back into balance. So she was realizing that when she was in an energy of neediness that didn't feel so good, that was her internal personal signal that she was coming off balance. So what, if any, are your symptoms of being out of balance? For me, anxiety, irritability, like with ease, anything would just make me be upset. I will have disruptive sleep on my own. So nobody's waking me up. I just wake up on my own a lot throughout the night. I lack motivation and energy. Those are my signals. When I start seeing them, I recognize them and then I take action. I'm like, oh, something is off balance. But a for sure symptom is anxiety. If I start feeling anxiety, not just at a moment, like I saw a mouse and I got scared, but like general anxiety about a million different things, and I'm not under the effect of hormones, I know that something is off balance. I'm just off balance, and my beautiful body is telling me something's off. What is it for you? What is the thing that makes you become aware that you have come off balance? Do you eat too much? Do you eat too little? Do you overwork? Do you get grumpy? Like, what is it? Now, I want you to not be afraid of imbalance because I think this is what happens. Most of us are so afraid of not being balanced. And like, because being balanced sounds like perfection, right? Like, oh, I'm a balanced person. Look, I've got my shit together most days. And I do have days of being incredibly balanced. And I do have moments of being incredibly off balance. And I want you to embrace those moments of imbalance. Why? Because there are benefits to us coming off balance. They are essential. In fact, those moments are essential to achieve balance. When you come off balance, you learn, okay, this need was not met, and that brings me off balance. Great wisdom. So when you embrace these off balance moments, you actually open yourself up to new possibilities. It's in those times that you are forced to reassess your priorities, to innovate, to think out of the box, and to make meaningful changes. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Right now, I'm going to the thick of heavy emotions. I don't know how many of you know somebody or have experienced IVF in your own body. But let me tell you something, does not get easier. I've done 6 rounds and I would have thought 6 rounds is going to be easier. I know what to expect. I know what the steps are. I know what this feels. it is not easier in the least. It's still very taxing emotionally, physically. I'm picking up the pieces day by day. I never know how I'm going to wake up the next morning. How am I going to be feeling? 2 days ago, I was super energized, went to the gym, worked out, was super sore after, but felt so alive. And yesterday, I was very cranky, wanted to be left alone, didn't want to see anybody. And today, I was so focused, and all I wanted to do was work, 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 work. I'm totally off balance right at this moment. I am writing and talking to you this episode of Embracing Imbalance as I am in a full moment of imbalance, where I can see my normal self there somewhere in the horizon, and I'm over here. Like there is a gap in between who I am normally and who I am being. And yet there is no conflict. I mean, I don't love it when I'm cranky or when I feel that, I don't really want to do the things that normally give me passion, when I can sense that that is off. And yet I am absolutely embracing it. One thing I know for sure, and I want you to know for sure, is that imbalance is not indefinite, like balance isn't. So this is short-lived. I will be in balance for a little bit. And as I am in this moment of imbalance, I am like head down doing work. This is my own personal like thinking about moments of being out of balance. They are normally creative windows for me, where I can just join the flow of feelings and just use that amount of energy that is generated by whether that's pain or the blah feeling that being off balance gives you. And I purposely use that energy to create, because it brings me into some sort of level of like healing and production in my head. So when you are having a moment of imbalance like I am now, I tend to do things. I noticed that I missed my therapy session, and I've noticed that I have a certain aversion at seeing my coach. Like I have these appointments booked, and there's a part of me that is like, I don't wanna, I don't want to talk about it yet. I don't want to do the work. I'm resisting doing the work. Partially, I think is because I am embracing that I am off balance, and that's okay. I am not in desperate need to fix it or to change it. I am noticing, and so these are the tips for you. There are times when I'm being off balance and what I want is help immediately. So I will book my therapist and coach right away versus avoiding them. And I'm not so much like, yeah, no, there's definitely some avoidance. So there's definitely something that I just don't want to face yet that I think is going to be more hurtful, or so does my brain says, right? So I'm in that moment. But I know I'm going to address this. I know I'm not quitting therapy or coaching. I'm going to address this. And I'm just sitting in the mud. This is muddy in here, and eventually a beautiful lotus will pick through the mud, and I'm going to see it, and I'm going to observe it, and I'm going to talk about it. In the meantime, I'm embracing that I'm sitting in this very, discomfort place of imbalance. I'm not rushing to get out of here. I'm not fixing it. I'm not broken. This isn't broken. This is a normal part of being alive. This is about having emotions and being a human experiencing life events. So when you are off balance, taking the time to feel it, to really truly sit in the mud. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book, No Lotus, no mud, no lotus. Love that book. I've actually have a tattoo on my wrist of a lotus flower. that I tattooed to my arm uh after one of my failed rounds of IVF. I can't think which one, definitely before my son. And in the horizon was the possibility of never becoming a mom. Even thinking about that right now makes me cry, makes me want to cry, because that was real fear for me. That, and so sometimes when you're in the mud, you tend to think, I'm always going to be off balance. This is never going to come back. This balance thing is never going to come back. And that's a very scary and hopeless place to be. So when I think of sitting in the mud, I always think of the lotus because it gives me hope. I always think that there's going to be transformation after embracing imbalance. But if I resist the imbalance, I don't get to sit in it, and I don't get to receive the wisdom of sitting in imbalance. I don't get to see the lotus. You could skip sitting in the mud, you could go fix, and you're going to tap into endless source of energy, almost like anxiety, where you're just desperately fixing something, but not giving it the time to exist. And so you don't find peace. So to find that peace in a moment of embracing imbalance, you want to notice that you're out of balance. You want to make it human. Of course, I'm off balance. I'm human. You want to remind that is impermanent, that it will come to an end. See that lotus. That lotus to me is hope. And I always say to myself, uh, where there is hope, there is life, you know? And so that's how I keep myself like going. You want to reach out and talk to those who you feel like talking to. So right now I've reached out mostly to my friends, and probably not as much as other times because I haven't felt that need. I have been embracing imbalance and what my feeling of what I need is. I've been embracing that, of what I feel I need right now. I've been embracing that. So I've been really feeling the need to be alone mostly. I don't want to talk to my husband. I don't want, like, normally I would go to my husband to be like, say magical words to me, or my mom or my friends or my therapist or somebody. And this time around, I have found a lot of peace in just being by myself. I have, I am so proud my brain has not gone into victim mode. Like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Not at all. And I do believe it's because of this ability to intentionally embrace the pain. Like, I knew it was coming. I knew, 2 weeks or a week ago, and I knew this hadn't worked out. I'm like, I'm calm. I'm generally calm, but I know hormones are going to leave my body, and as they're leaving the body, I'm gonna have emotions, and maybe other set of nostalgia is gonna sink in, which it has, and I know it's not done and over. And physically, I may have sensations and symptoms for the next 2 months, and that's okay. I can say, hey, if for the next 2 months you're off balance, that is life, my friend. That's what I mean by embracing it. So you're going to make it normal. You're going to be kind to yourself, have a lot of compassion because you are off balance. So the last thing you need from yourself is to be a dictator. Get out of that state now. The last thing you want to be is somebody who's not friendly, who's not understanding, who's not kind. So you want to be those things for yourself. It pays off, trust me. That's how you handle these periods. You accept them as a natural part of life, as a natural part of being human, by staying flexible, like just really noticing what it is that I need today in this off balance moment. Uh, by really abstaining yourself from going into victim mode. And how do we go to victim mode? Oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. This is never going to work out. So my brain wanting to be like, I can't believe I thought this was gonna work out. Like, why victimize myself in any way? I had somebody message me on Instagram the other day saying, wow, you seem to be living the dream. while I'm over here drowning. This is not a friend. This is somebody I know. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say because your life seems to be doing amazing. Didn't sound so genuine when it's backed up with, and while I'm drowning over here. And if that was a cry for help, it was not very clear that what they needed was help. But that is an example of victimizing ourselves. When you compare yourself to somebody else and then you reach out to them and be like, oh, your life is perfect. Meanwhile, mine is breaking down into pieces. So try not to do that. Even if your life is really falling into pieces, reach out to those who look like they're doing well, because she's assuming, right, that my life is like perfect right now. Um, Reach out directly if they seem like they're doing well in life and you would love their support. Reach out and say that, man, I want some of that energy you have right now. Do you have a moment to talk? I really don't know how to get out of here, and it seems like you know how to. That is better than just coming with a victim kind of messaging. Your life seems so great. Mine is, I'm drowning. I didn't even know how to respond to that, but I did. And I responded by saying, I work incredibly hard at maintaining my mind, my emotions, my marriage, my child, my business. I work hard. And I hope you choose to do the same too. And she responded with another victim message. So to each their own. But my point to you is that in order to embrace imbalance, you really want to stay in creative mode. And this is what I'm telling you. I have written so much. I'm reading a wonderful book, actually, three wonderful books right now. This is completely sidetracked, but I obviously love listening to books. It's like time saving for me. I can speed it up too. And I can take notes so I can pause. Love, 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 love it. Listening to audiobooks. But I also have now a couple of, hardcore books because I love old school reading too, right next to my bed. And I rotate. And I have one in my coffee table. So when I sit in the living room in the mornings to drink my coffee, I grab that book. I am just decided or invested in putting my brain to be in the best creative mode versus resisting, stressing, hating on imbalance. That drains your energy. And being off balance already is a drain of energy and it's needed. It's like what we need to reset. So to compensate, you can go easy on yourself, but also think of doing things that eventually will inject energy into you. So reading information, although I don't feel like super motivated while I'm reading it, I know eventually this will kick in and I'll be excited to use that information. So how do we return to balance? It comes back to you. It really does. The lotus does pick through that mud and you see it. And it's so beautiful when it does. And I can't wait for my next lotus to flourish and pick through that mud and just I can see it and I can photograph it and I can be thankful for it to be showing up in my life. So those periods of imbalance eventually lead us back to a new sense of balance. Sometimes when we're off balance, we're like, I just want to be my old me. I hate to break it to you, but that is done. This is why we go through those moments of imbalance so that we can grow, so that we can up level ourselves. You will never be your old self. You're going to be a new version of yourself. Even after 6 rounds of IVF, you kind of think that you know what you're going through, but you don't. You know why? Because you've become a different person from the last time you did it to this time. So sometimes you guys do repetitive actions and you're like, oh, I've done this a million times. And you're surprised maybe it feels differently this time. And you're like, but I followed the same steps. How come I felt differently? How come everything was different? Simple. You are different. You're constantly evolving and changing. So yeah, things that you have done before might feel completely different. I've said it before, but I've never had a failed IVF like I did now, where I have so much acceptance in my heart and overall gratitude. Like I feel like crying every time I think about that. Today at supper, for example, my son said he wanted to talk to me. We were having supper with friends, and he had spent all day snowboarding with my husband. And so he was kind of like, okay, I don't want to share mom. I wasn't with mom all day, so I want to be with you. So at supper, he's like, Mom, I want to talk to you. So he sat on my legs and I was cuddling him and just taking that moment in of how special I am to him, that he just wants my attention. And I completely told everybody at the table, I'm sorry, my son wants to talk to me privately. And just me. He wants my attention. I'm giving him my attention. And it is in moments like that that I feel this recent loss brings me to even more gratitude for what I do have, which is everything. If you had asked me a month ago how grateful I am for my son, I will tell you as grateful as I can be. I would have cried too, telling you how grateful I am for his existence. And yet another loss, and yet another reminder of how incredibly magical the miracle of life is, how not so common it is, makes me appreciate having him in my life even more than I thought possible. So those periods of imbalance eventually lead you to a new sense of perspective, of healing, of balance, of understanding. And yes, they will eventually bring you back to balance. It might not look like your original vision. It might not look like what you were before, but it's going to be exactly where you need to be. Think about your own periods of imbalance. Where have they led you to? What growth have you achieved from those opportunities of imbalance? And what has happened when you've resisted the imbalance, when you've called it a mental illness, when you were saying, that's not me, this isn't me, and rejected it? What has happened to you then? Meeting these moments of imbalance with an open heart and with the willingness to be uncomfortable so that you can see that lotus at the end of the day is everything. So to sum it up for you guys, the off-balance moments are moments that propel us forward. They shake us out of complacency and push us towards growth. I want to encourage you to embrace those moments of imbalance and just know that they have a gift for you. So next time you find yourself off balance, remember, it's not just a challenge, it's an opportunity. An opportunity to grow, to change, to find a new sense of balance, to get wiser. And so I want to thank you for tuning in, for listening to this episode. And I hope it really helps you embracing all the moments of imbalance that this year might have for you. Until next time, talk to you guys very soon.